What's up everyone, Coach Micah here and welcome back to another video. This may not look like much, but it's actually my current PR with the bench press and I'm really proud of that. I was able to get 5 reps in. Anyways, the theme of tonight's video is making strong arguments, especially because there aren't that many people left in the tournament. This is, I believe, the 7th out round that's going on as I film this right now. And whether it's Parley or TP or LDers, I'm out of breath. The field is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And you'll notice that the really big names are still in. These are kids who are making fantastic arguments, have great round awareness, and are able to convince the judges of their perspectives. And you might be thinking, a lot of these arguments I can actually beat, or I've beaten them in other tournaments. It doesn't necessarily matter when you beat them, unless you're doing it at NITOC. But you have to be able to have the right round awareness and make the right strategic and strong arguments in order to get this far into NITOC. So join me on my workout as we talk about what it means to make strong arguments. Let's see if I can add a little bit more weight. 10 more pounds. Do some quick maths, 45 plus 45. So plus 90, right? So 135 plus 50, 185 plus 15 is 200. 200-pound bench press. Let's move on to the next exercise. We're going to be using the 30-pound weights for this one. 3 sets of 10. But let's get to the first point because it's important to understand why people are losing. So for example, the hat I'm wearing, just Milo it. My little brother Milo made it very, very far. I've already lost count of my reps. Made it very, very far out in this tournament, but he ended up getting knocked out today, which never feels any good, especially if you think you've been making strong arguments. And I would argue that he had one of the best last speeches in this last round. So why exactly did he lose if he was making strong arguments? It's because not all arguments are as strong as you think they are, because the arguments that are going to win the round are often in other places. So for example, my little brother did a really good job at refuting a lot of the points that his opponent brought up. But his opponent did respond to one of his arguments multiple times. Same tag and everything. And Milo did not address it, which could have absolutely been a reason. I haven't read the ballot, but it could have absolutely been a reason why he lost that round. The first thing you want to do is analyze the bird's eye view of the round. What exactly is going on? Does your case still work because your opponent didn't respond to it or did, and do their responses determine whether or not your points are even relevant, right? So you have to make sure you understand where your opponent is going, and they often will expose that by responding to the same argument with the same tag. If the same argument receives the same several arguments receive the same response, then that is the main thing that you want to attack in your round, because your opponent has diminished your case just to that thing, or that line of logic. So if you can win that line of logic, then you have dismantled your opponent's entire case. Let's get those weights here. Another really important thing in LD is to understand nuances. So one of the arguments that I really like is the both. Both can exist. This argument shows how the round is not mutually exclusive. We're never going to be able to totally get rid of theoretical knowledge or totally devalue skill, but instead we can have both. I don't know if that was 9 or 10. Maybe I'll do an extra one in the next one. What do I mean by this? Well, you can't possibly separate practical skills and theoretical knowledge from the person. You can't separate it from anyone's life. Practical skills and theoretical knowledge are both developed. You have to learn how to do it well. And so you can absolutely learn multiple things at once. So how do we show true value? Let's go over those 2 arguments. Some debaters argue that it's the value itself that is how we determine the truthfulness of the resolution. Valued over refers to value. theoretical knowledge is intrinsically valuable and therefore is more valuable than practical skills and therefore should be valued over practical skills. The problem with this, at least the problem that I see, and a persuasive point my little brother won around off of this point, is the idea, well, that there's different types of value. There's intrinsic value and extrinsic value. Both practical skills and theoretical knowledge are valuable, but in different ways. Practical skills will achieve things that theoretical knowledge cannot. Theoretical knowledge will achieve things practical skills cannot. They're both valuable. So how do you make a choice between them? If your negative opponent decides to say, well, we're looking at what is most valuable, what we hold the highest, you have to argue that the resolution is not about what we necessarily hold the highest. It's about what matters to your own weighing mechanism, your value or criterion. When put against each other, when we choose one over the other, we're not assigning value, we're instead relating two valuable things, we're comparing them to a standard, and we're seeing which one meets the standard. That's how we know which one we should value over, not simply because of the essence of the thing that we value. There's a lot of nuance to Lincoln-Douglas debate, and it's really important that you realize that. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a box that you won't be able to escape. The best way to diminish your opponent's credibility and the impact from their arguments is to point out how there is nuance. You can have both. Both exist. But there's a downfall to this argument. Your opponent can argue that if both exist, then that's a wash. And the affirmative needs to prove that we should choose one. But what if we don't need to choose one? Because we can have both, we need to find a different way to value, which is why we go back to the essence argument. Yes, both are valuable and both achieve different things in real life. Whew, I'm out of breath. It's really hard to talk while you're carrying 60 pounds of weight, essentially. And what you respond to that argument is with the idea of exclusion. Significant exclusion, not total exclusion. Mutually exclusive means one can be true while the other can't be true. They can't be true at the same time. Significant exclusion looks like we can show what happens when we value one over the other by the amount of time and resources that we give it. So for example, let's say we take an acquisition statement, what I personally think is really strong. I think I'll do 3 more here. I'm not exactly sure how much I did. Hopefully I met my goal. But the exclusion argument basically said, or the acquisition argument, excuse me. Dude, this is hard. The acquisition argument says that we can measure what we value based off the time and resources that it takes to acquire practical skills or theoretical knowledge. And this makes sense, as practical skills are learned. You have to practice, you have to spend time getting more proficient at your skill, while theoretical knowledge and understanding has to be developed over time as well. It takes time to fully comprehend and understand a thought. And understanding a thought can give pathways to time to spending on understanding even more thoughts and things like that. So they both take time to be developed, which means we can show what society values over based on the time it takes to develop that thing. Another way to look at value is what's foundation, prioritize. What do we do first of all? And that's where negative can come in and argue we need to make sure we lay a foundation that is theoretical because of things like morals, excellence, virtue, etc. You have to lay the foundation in order to set yourself up for everything else. In other words, nothing can be built on a faulty foundation, which means the foundation is more valuable. It's understanding arguments like these that will allow you to make the round work best for you and hopefully give you that edge over your opponent. Let's move on to the next exercise. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a while since I've worked on my abs, but we know why people love doing upper body workouts. Working on their abs, working on their biceps and their back. It's because it looks really nice. It's a way to work on yourself that has strength, but it's also visually appealing. I wish I had taken before and after pictures of my workout journey, because I would say I look a lot more visually appealing than I did way before when. But I think it's really important for your cases to not only be strong soundly, but also to look strong as well. And a lot of that happens with analogies and word pictures. When you're doing and crafting an LD case, you want to make sure that the judges understand the picture that you're trying to paint. Because let's be real, theoretical knowledge is deep and kind of broad, and it's hard to truly understand the comparison between the two. And so what that means is we need some ways to simplify it down into a picture that's helpful for the judges and helpful for your audience. Analogies are really, really important. One of my favorite analogies is the idea that theory is a luxury. In other words, let's say there's a power crisis and all the power can either go to the hospital where doctors are practicing their skill, or to a power plant which powers the hospitals where doctors can practice their skill. Where do we route the remaining last power to? We always sacrifice the understanding. We always sacrifice the science, the labs, in order to apply straight to the practical skill of the doctors. That being said, theory is a luxury. You cannot truly appreciate theory unless you've had your basic needs met. That's another type of argument, and that argument, an analogy, really works because it communicates the idea that value comes from what is most relevant to a person's life. Another type of argument that I really like is comparing, apples and oranges. You can't really compare them because they're both fruit. But there are two different types of value. We talked about this earlier, extrinsic and intrinsic value. And what that means is there are two different ways to find something valuable. Valuable in and of itself, or valuable with what it gets you. In this round, that's basically what we're comparing. Practical skills are the quickest way to get you a result, but they themselves are not intrinsically valuable. But knowledge and understanding knowledge is intrinsically valuable. It's valuable in and of itself. So how do we choose between the two? It's like comparing a brick and an apple. You can't. They're both able to exist at the same time. You can develop both at the same time. We would never eat a brick and we would never build houses out of apples, but yet apples keep us fed and bricks keep buildings from falling down. They're both valuable for different reasons. We don't have to exclude them at all. So there's no reason to make a choice because all of my opponent's arguments can be true and mine true at the same time. It's word pictures like that that confirm the logic that you're making, keeping you strong via your muscles, but it makes your case visually appealing. You look nice to your opponents. The case feels right to vote for. Let's do one more set. I probably should count this time. It's okay to be a little uncomfortable. After all, no pain, no gain. It's the pain that means that my body will replace that with muscle, which will be really nice because it'll make me more self-confident. Also, just to toot my own horn a little bit, I maxed out this machine. I'm gonna be totally honest. I don't know if I'm doing this exercise correctly. And sometimes that can happen in an LD round. You don't exactly know the exercise that you're doing. You don't exactly know where the round is going or what the arguments are that are gonna win the round. And that can be problematic because if you don't wanna know what to focus on, there's a chance you could learn that your judges really want consistency in the arguments. Put that back. So how do we deal with this? One of the things that I like to do that'll make you a really strong debater is take a bird's eye view on everything. What do I mean by a bird's eye view? Tell the judge what is happening in the round. Speak to them like they're your friend, heck, that they're your younger sibling. What exactly is happening right now? What have the arguments what are the arguments that have been made? Where is the round headed? What is the direction that they're going to? That will help you get some rapport with the judges. And if you ask yourself this in your prep time, it'll help you see what to attack next because you want to follow the accurate direction of the round and hit the arguments head on. You don't want to respond to the weakest argument possible or straw man your opponent's arguments. Attack them head on. You can even mention that your opponent's points are true or that they're powerful or that they're persuasive. That's really important. But you're going to still outweigh them by showing how they're problematic even when they're strong. So for example, if your opponent says all of your examples, all of your arguments are a wash because we need theoretical knowledge and practical skills and we can't determine value. The response to this will of course be saying, my opponent did a really good job showing that you need both. And as the affirmative burden, it is true, I have to show one is more valuable than the other. But where the conflict really lies is not in the essence of which is valuable, because they're both valuable. Instead, we determine conflict by what we prioritize, we show valued over by what we choose and what we choose to sacrifice for the sake of the other. When it comes to practical skills, we choose to sacrifice the development, the significant development of theoretical knowledge in order to have a significant development of practical skill. Another thing you could argue is the nuance argument, right? So for example, your opponent argues, well, we have to have morals. You can argue you can absolutely have morals without valuing theoretical knowledge. Why? Well, not only is every human born with a basic moral capability, but also it doesn't take time to develop moral information. In other words, you can know what is right and do what is right without knowing why it is right. And this is actually true for a lot of people. If you ask a lot of people about their convictions, they won't exactly know why they believe what they believe. Instead, they'll just continue to act on the way they believe because that's how they were taught without truly understanding it. So morality doesn't even need a significant understanding in order to be useful, which means that we should spend our time significantly learning about practical skill. Let's see if I'm doing this exercise right. It does feel really good back there though. Let's change our grip. Back straight. I'm not a personal trainer, guys. I just want to be as healthy as humanly possible. I do want to find a shoulder machine, so let's go ahead and do that next. This pun is really going to be a reach. The next element is you have to have a good head on your shoulders, and this is a shoulder press. So, ha ha ha. Anyways, a key thing that separates the good from the great debaters is the head on your shoulders. Who are you as a person? Who are you in the round? What are you like? Do judges like you? Do they think that you're good? Do they think that you're funny? Do they think that it's important to, that your personality is important? Hopefully so, because the good debaters are proven time and time again, that they're likable and that they're witty and that they have a good head on their shoulders, their personality. Let's get this. Oh yeah, that feels so good. And honestly, it feels good to be yourself in a round. There's no reason to be inauthentic. There's no reason to be someone who you're not. There's no reason to try to put on an act. Just be yourself. It's a lot harder to put on an act consistently than it is to just strengthen your own personality. I don't know how many I did. I think that's a common theme. And there are different types of personality as well. There are people who are just naturally witty and naturally funny, that they are like your best friend, your goofy best friend when you're in the round. There are competitors who are very logical. They don't necessarily care about how funny they are. They just want to make sure they're making the correct point and that the logic is sound. And then there are people who want to be the judge's guide. They're not concerned about being funny. They're not necessarily concerned about being likable or humorous. They want to make sure the judge has the best experience possible. They're going to cater everything to them, almost like how a counselor is there to answer your questions and help you deal with your issues. A debater who is able to look at the round and be the guide and clearly, logically explain everything in a very calm, merciful, and gentle manner is another thing a person can embrace. And some people are just extremely passionate. They're really, really passionate about their points and they want to be right. They use the emphasis and the eye contact. They use the pausing and they use the emotion. Some judges really like that. The really good debaters are going to be the ones to look at what the judges are saying in their reasons for decisions or in their judge philosophies, right? When you ask them what they want to see in the round, you're looking at their facial expressions, understanding what their status is, and then you can adapt your own personality to meet those needs. Let's talk about status for a second. This is something that I was taught when I was a competitor. And that is the judge's energy level will dictate what they want to see or not see in a round. So let's say that the judge is an old grandma lady who metaphorically made you a batch of cookies and she's very flighty and she loves to smile. If you're a debater that goes in there and is stoic and is passionate, doesn't smile once, and is just very logical, subliminally, that judge probably won't like you as much, especially if your opponent matches her energy. It's awkward for a super flighty person to come and smiley and happy to come into contact with someone who is stoic and shows no emotion. That's a little bit awkward. There's not a lot of cohesion there. On the flip side, if the judge is super stoic, maybe they're tired, they just want to see a good round, they don't want fluff, and you bring in all that, you bring in the smiles and the joy and the fluff, the judges aren't going to like you very much. They're going to kind of find you annoying. So being able to match the energy of the judge is really important to making sure that your head is on your shoulders. What's up, my guy?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, bro. It has been forever, dude. I love working out. I love the way it makes me feel. I love working out my debate brain. I love getting better at the arguments. And that's something that I would encourage you to think about as we come to a close this tournament. And we're gonna figure out what resolutions we're gonna be talking about next year. So you be sure to watch my videos, because I will be releasing video commentaries on the resolutions and all this summer as we prep. We'll stop right there. As we prep and as we get ready for the next year. Because if your competition day has ended or has ended at this tournament, then your preparation for next year's NITOC has already begun. I want to thank you so much for joining me on my workout. It is important to make strong arguments. It's important to get stronger in your craft. You can get only so far on hype and fumes and just inexperience, but you're going to get all the way to the top if you're really, really strong. So make sure you guys work on that. Work on your cases, work on your logic, develop that theoretical understanding this summer, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video, but also at the next national competition with stronger cases. Anyways, thanks for watching. Have a good evening.